I chose this music because it has a nice comfy beginning sound to it, and this is still very much the start of this self-development journey I'm making. A lot of self-development teachers like to say you should focus on winning instead of not losing. Hear me out on why you should not do this until you're deep into your advancement. So I like the way this sounds. It sounds very optimistic. It sounds powerful. Focus on winning. Don't fear losing. But the truth is, this just doesn't hold up in a lot of real-life scenarios. You've got to be in the game of life in the first place to be able to focus on winning. You've got to stay alive before you can improve your life. You have to survive before you can thrive. I had a debate about this with my ethics professor. He argued he does not want to survive, but thrive. I want to thrive too, but survival can't be ignored. Survival is one of the most important tasks you have on this planet. Neglecting it is a death wish, especially in this new coming age. So an analogy I have for this is imagine you're at a war. Your commander told you to only focus on shooting down as many of the enemy soldiers as possible. So you do that, focusing mostly on that. You walk through the battlefield and suddenly, well, there goes your leg. You triggered a landmine because you were focused solely on winning or your body count. So in that example, focusing only on winning and not fearing losing cost him greatly. Instead, the way he should tackle it is watch for landmines, make sure no enemy eyes are on him, do everything he can to ensure he and his teammates will stay alive and healthy, then focus on his mission. You should apply the same to your life. When I first get to a job, the first thing I focus on for about a month is just not fucking up. There are times I've been better or worse at this, it all depends on if I'd done that job before. There are times I've been terrible at a job at the start, particularly at a pizza place I was at. After I know what not to screw up, I then focus my efforts on learning the ins and outs of everything, then maximizing quality and efficiency wherever I can. Now, once you get to an advanced level, then I would apply what those other guys were saying. Once it's second nature, automatic to not screw up, then you can massively focus on winning. A great example is the competitive scene in Super Smash Bros. Most of the top players are hyper-aggressive. They're not waiting for their opponent, they go straight to them and try to completely demolish them with a never-ending combo. Them screwing up is very rare. Out of every move they make, it's whatever percent chance, but it's infinitesimally low. Oh, also, this is a good time to mention, people who think video games are a total waste of time are completely out of their mind. Yes, you don't want to get too addicted to them, and they're very addicting and often have research teams devoted to them to make them as addicting as possible. So you are taking a risk every time you play a video game. But as long as it's a difficult video game, preferably a very difficult one, that has you overcoming all kinds of hard situations, you can definitely translate what you learn into real life, particularly perseverance. There's some games where you have to be so in the moment where every quarter of a second matters, and this is known as being in the zone. You can't be in your head in these moments, you'll get your team killed. Video games definitely have many types of value, only one of those being difficulty, but you have to be careful to not let them consume too much of your time. These days, I only let them take up like 10 to 20% of my time, if that, but that's mostly because I was a heavy gamer in my past, so I've pretty much completely filled that urge. I'm going to again stress to be very careful with video games. There was a game that was so addicting for me that this message appeared at the start every time we logged in. I saw this message hundreds of times, maybe thousands. It never even registered in my brain. It was just something to click through. So especially since escapism is super tempting right now, and honestly indulging in escapism right now is very understandable, you have to be careful. If this world was on hard or very hard mode before 2020, which most would agree with, it's now on nightmare mode. So you have to adjust accordingly. That's why now it's even more important that you're a strong, well-rounded person than before. To anyone below 18 dealing with all this nonsense, you have massive sympathy from me. You're going to have to become really strong really fast when you're just getting used to becoming an adult, but hopefully this video series can help at least one person with that. But anyway, I'm going to assume the hypothetical person watching this series is completely unfamiliar with self-development or a beginner in it. They may not be, but I want to build solid groundwork. So we'll definitely assume you're not at an advanced stage of this, so my advice is focus on not losing until you have that down solid, then focus on winning. Ways to not lose include, and you're not going to want to hear some of these because they involve responsibility, a lot of people don't want to get their hands dirty for this stuff, but the quicker you accept self-developing heavily involves doing your duties and due diligence, the better off you'll be. Ways to not lose include showing up to work on time, doing your tasks slowly, making sure each step is correct, and if you mess a step up, you go, oh yeah, then rarely repeat that mistake. You can know to naturally avoid a hot stove, but the ones who really avoid it well are the ones who have burned their hands on the stove. Once you know how to do it slowly but correctly, then focus on speeding up. Being amicable to your coworkers. If someone's a dick, if you're going to be a dick back, make sure it doesn't cost you because it often will. It's often better to just laugh off what they're saying and continue working. To be clear, I mean when when they're being a dick for no reason, not if there's someone being a dick but still telling you the right way to do something. That's at least constructive. Show up in an outfit that says you want to be there. Don't be a kiss ass to the boss. They've often seen it a million times and will respect you more for not sucking up to them. Talk to them just like you would someone on equal footing after you're not a newbie at your job, because at the end of the day, they're just another person just like you. A lot of people only want the pretty sounding, esoteric, fun part of self-development. Stuff like this they want to ignore, the rigorous handling of responsibilities. If you're not doing this stuff, you're not testing the principles you're learning out there in the real world. They may just sit in the back of your mind until you forget them. It may take you years to relearn them if you ever do. I'm going to respect you enough to not treat you with kid gloves. Self-development is not just hearing a bunch of pretty aphorisms and sitting on your ass. That's a way of failing, not applying things you learn. And if the thing you learned doesn't seem to be correct, then discard it. But make sure it wasn't correct before you do. Make sure it was a problem with the principle and not the way you applied the principle, or a problem with yourself. A problem many learners of self-development run into is they end up like this. They have so much theory in their head that they aren't present to the moment. They're up in their head almost as if they're barely conscious, or they're only thinking about the past or future. If you aren't taking care of at least your basic essentials, something is going wrong. This is where Jordan Peterson comes in. His quote, "Before you try to change the world, clean your room," is very true. You're going to have a lot of new ideas coming to you and it's very exciting, but absolutely don't neglect your responsibilities and duties. If the trash needs to be taken out that day, just take it out. Don't think about it, don't whine about it, just take it out. If your room needs to be clean, just clean it as quickly as possible and get it over with. If your pet needs food, hurry up and feed the poor thing. Stuff like that. Regularly take care of the basics of your life and you're already off to a good start. How do you not lose with your body? Well, focus on one area at a time. First start with your head. Brush your teeth early. Floss. Next is your nose. Make sure you've got clear sinuses. If not, do something about it to fix it. Definitely take care of your brain, of course, but that's a very complicated subject. Make sure your hair is clean. If you're bald, make sure that head is nice and glistening. If you're a guy and you have facial hair, make sure it looks good and there's not stray hairs everywhere. Next we go down to your arms. Make sure your fingernails are the way you think they should be. Next, your torso. Luckily, this should be just fine the way it is, but if you can think of anything to do there as your hygiene routine, go for it. I'll leave your nether regions to you. Make sure your toenails are clipped if they need to be. Be sure to shower, and an occasional bath can be very soothing even if you're a hyper-masculine guy. Just do it when no one's watching. You'll love it. You can put a rubber ducky in there, it'll be great. There's something about baths that seem to wash away the stresses of the day. It's much more immersive than a shower. Also, if you're a guy and taking a bath freaks you out, you're holding your masculinity too close to your chest. You need to let go a bit. It's actually more masculine to not be constantly concerned whether something is slightly feminine or not that you or a buddy of yours does. Though at the same time, I believe if you're straight, you should try to max out your masculinity as much as possible. You're on that path, might as well commit to it. But still consider the feminine aspects of humanity. After all of this is being done regularly, which it should be already, but if not, get on that, then you can focus on working out and all that good stuff. Did I really just tell you a hygiene routine? I did, but that's how comprehensive I want this series to be, because I love ya. How do you not lose with your home? Make sure it's clean. The first deep cleaning is always the hard part if it's dirty. Once you do that, which can take many hours, so you may want to spread it out over a week, then all you have to do after that is the easy part, just picking up the trash from the day. You definitely don't need to dust or anything like that daily. That can easily be something you relegate to weekly. After everything's clean enough and everything generally looks good, then you focus on really cleaning specific areas of your house. Now something you actually want to avoid is your apartment or house looking too perfect. This can actually turn people off because it doesn't look natural. One random coat thrown somewhere or something can help with that. So after your apartment or house is clean on the regular, then you can focus on doing cool stuff with it, like adding stuff that shows your personality. That's the part where you focus on winning, where instead of just surviving, you're thriving in this area of your life. And you just start applying that to everywhere in your life. First, focus on not making big mistakes. You can get all the self-development you want, but if you make one of the big mistakes, you can be behind bars forever or 6 feet under. You have to be aware of what the big mistakes are, so definitely do some research on that. Most people's knowledge of the law is hilariously bad, mine included. There's still much more I need to know about the law. It's amazing to me, yet makes perfect sense that they teach us barely a thing about laws in schools. That's also why alcohol is marketed as cool and the best time you could ever have. Then people get stuck with dealing with a DUI if they're lucky and have a miserable life for 5 years. I've given rides to some of these people on driving apps. I do drink lightly, but I just don't enjoy getting drunk. Drugs are also marketed as cool in songs. They're just not as overt about that. They'll have an ad that says don't do drugs, but then on the radio there's songs that talk about hitting the pipe or smoking reefer. There are people that occasionally do fine on drugs. I've just always avoided the stuff. It's just not for me, but I do get why people are into them. The underground marketing for them is very good. Another way to not lose is to not be stuck in a position you don't want to be in your career. When I was starting out, I used to be a busboy, and I had already proven myself and gotten promoted, but they had me on a random busboy shift. The manager was watching and wanted to see me go fast, but I purposely went slow so that they wouldn't schedule me for more busboy shifts because I was just done with that period of my life and was ready to move up. I got the inspiration from this from a video game where this guy got a relic weapon, a really hard to get weapon that took him over a year, for a class that wasn't his favorite. Well, he got stuck on that job in group content because he had the best weapon and wasn't able to play his other classes. This is something to be careful of in your career. Don't do too well at a job you don't want to be stuck doing. Sometimes things are tricky. You've got to make it very clear if you perform above average that you don't want to stay at your position forever and do want to move up. Sometimes things have a counterintuitive aspect to them that if you discern it, it can help you in the long run. Observation is a big part of not losing. Take the time to observe what others do where they make mistakes. Make sure to avoid these mistakes. Observe what aspects of their personality causes them trouble. Keep those aspects of your personality toned down or non-existent. The practical side of self-development needs just as much attention as the conceptual side, and it's my goal to combine the two. You want to stay as grounded in reality as possible while applying these concepts. What you don't do in life is just as important as what you do. I fucked up many times in my life, but what's important is not repeating the same mistakes. That's what not to do. As you grow up, you should minimize the frequency and severity of mistakes you make. As basic as this stuff is, you still need to take care of the basic needs in your life without complaint and as quickly as possible simply because you know it needs to be done. This type of small habit forming will help you immensely later on. Another reason I'm doing this is, out of 100 people on the street, if you asked each of them how they're doing and paid attention to not only their answer, but their tone of voice, body language, and everything, how many would actually be doing well? These days, thanks to everything going on, I'd say maybe 10 to 20% of them. The average person is just not equipped to deal with the intensity of the very historical times we're living in right now. And someone I know has already told me these videos have helped them, so that's enough reason for me to keep doing them for a long time. There will of course be people who think it's weird that I'm doing this or that I've changed, but this is who I've been for over a decade. I just didn't openly display it. Being real with you, if 2020 and beyond wasn't as insane as it is, I don't know if I ever would have done this. This was kind of the push I needed to start doing this stuff. Everyone has their niche. Some of you have multiple niches. Some of you are better at your career than me, some are way better at guitar, some way better at working out. This is my niche. It doesn't make me any better or worse than you, but this is my niche, so I'm going to keep going with it. This video is probably going to be the most boring one of these I ever make. I was just covering the absolute basics. The next ones will be a lot more interesting, I promise. This is a different approach to a lot of self-development out there, but yes, I thoroughly believe you need to focus on not failing before you focus on winning. Some will tell you to only focus on winning. I completely disagree. Have fun out there and stay alive. The world's not ending yet. That may just be a scare tactic. Just make smart decisions every day and you can live to a time when things are better. But just recognize that you're living in a very historic time, so never assume anything and always be on your guard. The ones who come out of this intact are going to be those who survive, but there are those of us who want to keep developing as people even if the world's on fire. Where you live very much matters now than ever before, so do some research on that and make sure you're where you want to be. If where you're living is impeding your development, consider moving. Do what you have to do.